Well, hello to all of you from around the world. I want to thank you for joining us for another edition of Soulivity Today. We're broadcasting live from our studio right here in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. And whether you're at home, driving, or at work, we're always glad you're here with us. My name is Brian Westley Johnson. And of course, we have another amazing show for you. So let's start here. We all know that the line between business and personal can often blur. Whether we're leading a team, running a business, or just working toward our goals, we're bringing ourselves to the table, our values, our personalities, our emotions. So what happens when these worlds overlap? Is there even a line to be drawn? Well, in some ways, business is very personal. It's about connecting, building relationships, and making an impact. We strive to bring our whole selves to the world, blending our passion with our purpose. But there's a delicate balance to maintain. What do we do when business challenges feel personal? And how do we handle it when our personal lives impact our professional decisions? Well, today we are diving into these questions. We'll explore where we draw boundaries, when it's okay to let down walls, and how to recognize when one side might be affecting the other in ways we didn't expect. So let's get ready to unpack this together, for this is the big question that impacts us all. And back with us is my wonderful co-host for today, Dr. Chanel DeGuzman, an executive leadership coach and author of the book, Come Back to Yourself, Love Life, Live Free. Dr. Chanel has coached and counseled people from all walks of life to realize all the good and greatness inside of them. Hello, Dr. Chanel. How are you?
Good morning, Brian. It's good to be back with you. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, doing fantastic. And so I'm loving that you're here as we explore this question, right? Is it business or is it personal? And I found this wonderful article on LinkedIn by a leadership alignment coach, Candy Barone. And it's called Why We Need to Stop Saying It's Business, It's Not Personal, and realize that in fact it is personal. Highly recommend everyone go read it. We'll put the links in our chat. And as I was saying, it was a fascinating read, Dr. Chanel, because it really dives into this question, and I loved her answers. In fact, she comes out of the gate saying that the separation of business and personal, and I quote, creates one of the biggest missed opportunities for most organizations as it takes the human element out of the equation. And that it takes the humanity out of cultures and our teams. And so I'm glad you're here because as an executive leadership coach and as an author, I know that you're dealing with this kind of question all the time. So around this idea that this is a missed opportunity, would love your thoughts to kind of get us started in this discussion today.
Yeah, it's a great discussion, great topic, Brian, as always. I think the main thing is just recognizing that we are a whole human being. And when we separate out those elements that make us uniquely me or uniquely you, uniquely us, we're leaving out parts that could contribute to the workplace, to business, to entrepreneurship, whatever your endeavor is. And there's been this misconception that you have to separate them when in fact you should be bringing more of you into
Right.
your quote unquote professional spaces, your business spaces, because that's where the creativity, the passion, the joy, the safety, psychological safety, when all that is fully operable, that's when we get our best ideas. That's when we create. That's when we innovate. And that potentially could, solve the next biggest problem in an organization. So I strongly recommend, I strongly adhere to embracing and coming forth as your true whole self, no matter what
Yeah.
the space.
Yeah, she goes on and she says that she sees evidence of what you're talking about so clearly in the work that she does with Fortune 500 companies, and that when you're using this framework of it's business, not personal, she says it's no surprise when I find that she finds a lack of trust as one of the top dysfunctions at these organizations, where it's fundamentally where companies and cultures break down, this lack of trust, right?
I would say she is so spot on because just last week I was with an organization and we were talking about conflict and communications. And as we start to unpack that topic, the central element is lack of trust. People
Mm.
not being able to feel like they can fully express their identity, their full identity, and be accepted, be valued, and have a position at the table, in the boardroom, at the leadership meetings where decisions are made, and feeling like if they do come forth and share divergent thinking and different ways of being, then they are silenced, they are dismissed, they are viewed as invisible. And all of
Mm.
that builds up this lack of trust, this separation that, okay, I'm not going to share, who I am, which means I'm holding on, I'm holding close to the best, my ideas, my creativity, my innovation, my energy. I'm just going to
Right.
do what I have to do to get by. And how is that going to benefit, driving the mission and vision forward in an organization?
Well, it wouldn't, right? It
Oh,
wouldn't. And there's probably no buy-in as
there's
well,
no buy-in,
right?
no
Because
buy-in.
it's um I feel as though what Miss Barone is getting at is, listen, and we'll talk about this in a minute, but the fact that that culture is driven by people, right? So how do you have a positive, progressive, and practical culture in your organization when you're not seeing people as people, when you're only seeing them as kind of like these widgets, right?
Right.
That are supposed to be moved around, that are supposed to be completely compliant to whatever you want them to be, even if it's not who they are, right?
Mhm.
How do you expect that culture to work? It's just not going to work.
Yeah. And if it hums along, right? Because, let's just say people are doing the best they can because they don't have an executive coach, for example.
Right,
Um,
right.
they just are not investing the time that's needed to get to know the people because of the high demand of the workplace and the pace of work. The main role of a leader is people. I call all leaders VP of people. Your main job is to get to know your people, get to know what's important to them, what sparks their life, and tap into that energy so that you can build a connection and you can build trust, which brings about loyalty and more productivity as far as being able to endorse goals and visions and values of that team, of that organization. But the thing is that leaders don't spend the time going deeper. We walk into the office, how was your weekend? And what did you do? Right.
Right,
We don't
right.
go deep. We stay at the surface, so the superficial level. And not all of
Right.
us do it, but a lot of executives, a lot of leaders don't engage on a deeper level because they don't feel comfortable or they don't have the skills to do so.
Well, yeah, and again, right? That's that's where people like you come into play, where it's like, well, maybe that's a weakness that maybe you ought to exploit and start kind of working on, where especially where we're talking about men specifically in these leadership roles, where society's already taught them be detached, don't show your feelings, don't ever be emotional, any of that's weakness, when actually bringing that to the table is actually a strength, right? Especially in leading an organization.
Absolutely. And, I don't know if we'll get into emotional intelligence, but, many leaders and men see, for example, emotional intelligence or being able to connect emotionally with your team as a soft skill.
Right.
And some men and people, leaders, don't necessarily gravitate toward development in soft skills. So most of my leadership um, sessions, like on conflict resolution and management, or emotional intelligence, or going from supervision to going from line to supervision, a lot of the audience tend to be women, right? And so, there's no surprise. And we have a hearty session because there's a lot of emotion and people are vulnerable and willing to come forth and be open. And we don't always find that on the opposite end. And like you said, the men are the ones primarily dominant in leadership.
Wow. Wow. Um, gonna end this first segment with another little quote here from this article where she says, once the trust is gone or absent, you then see the compound impact of the other four dysfunctions. So once trust is gone, you get fear of conflict, you get lack of commitment, avoidance of accountability, and inattention to results. They all play out because most companies fail to connect the dots back to the overall effect and impact this has on their culture and their organization. So it's like this, once you start down this path of detaching yourself personally, right, from your people and each other, and you build this culture, it's a race to the bottom.
It's
It's
true.
just a race to the bottom.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. It's cyclical. And once it starts, it's hard to stop that train. You'd have to have sort of like an intervention. You need some team development.
Yeah.
You need some leadership development. And yeah, that's definitely an area that needs attention. And you can then also see people quietly quitting, as you've heard the term. So
Yeah.
whether you're still collecting a paycheck, you're not, you know, attentive. You're not in the space fully, contributing and being a team player. And so that's a huge phenomenon right now, is this quietly quitting as well.
Well, I am glad that you are here with us to talk about this and bringing this beautiful perspective into what we're talking about today. But we got more. Chanel's going to stay with us because we got more, everybody. We're going to take this break. But when we come back, we'll talk about why one very important answer to this question of is it business or personal is right in the mirror, and that's you. So stay right here. Soulivity Today is brought to you by Happy Travelers Tours and Old Vine Wine Tours.
Ready to embark on a wine-filled adventure? Go to oldvinewinetours.com and book your luxury wine tour today and experience the unparalleled beauty and flavors of Sonoma, Napa, and Lake counties. oldvinewinetours.com offers transportation for the most amazing experiences in the Sonoma Valley, Santa Rosa, Healdsburg, and all of Sonoma County, as well as the Napa Valley and Clear Lake wineries of Lake County. From boutique tastings to bridal party transportation, we have you covered. Visit oldvinewinetours.com or call 707-386-9859 for more information. Don't forget to mention promo code Soulivity to get 10% off either a culture or wine tour. Book your wine country adventure. Visit oldvinewinetours.com or call 707-386-9859 today.
What if you could make a free phone call and reduce your car payment by as much as $83 a month? Right now, you could be paying as high as 20% interest. Your new interest rate could be reduced to as low as 2.48%. You can refinance any existing car loan or leased car and save money every month. Take 5 minutes of your time right now. Make this free phone call and learn how to save hundreds of dollars a year by refinancing your existing car loan.
Dial 877-511-7277 now. That's 877-511-7277.
Hello there. We are back here with more on Soulivity Today as we spend the hour discussing the age-old question in our professional lives. Is it business or is it personal? And I'm happy to have back with me Dr. Chanel DeGuzman, who's an author and executive leadership coach, to chat with me about this. Chanel, again, we're talking about this wonderful article from Candy Barone, who's an executive alignment coach, called Why Do We Need to Stop Saying It's Business, It's Not Personal, and realize, in fact, it is personal. She says in this article powerfully, there's this one piece that's here that I want to kind of read really quickly, and that is, we said before, culture is a function of people. And then she goes on to say, when we don't make our environments or organizations about people first, we lose the very essence of what is required to build a culture. I hear leaders profess and spout that they are all about their people, but when push comes to shove, it is always about the bottom line first. Isn't that so true?
It absolutely is. You know, I have a quick scenario that I'll share with you, Brian.
Sure.
I actually was a part of a team and we acquired a new leader and the leader was a part of the existing team. And so it was, you know, an interesting dynamic. But our first meeting together, the new manager, you know, started asking me about what I did, what I had going on, what were my goals, etc. And she failed to just ask me about me, just to find out
Wow.
who I was. So I had to stop the conversation, Brian, right off the rip. I had to say, hey, you know what? Why don't we take this conversation in another direction? And I said, because the way that we're starting out right now is probably not going to end well. And so I was very upfront and said, hey, why don't we just take time to get to know each other a little bit better before we start down this path of what am I working on? When's the due date and all of that? And to my surprise, she was actually really relieved because she was just ready to just dive in and just start, quote unquote, what she thought she was supposed to do. You just need to stop the presses, take some time, do the bonding and rapport, and get to know your people, because that's how you're going to get the productivity. That's how you're going to get the buy-in, like you mentioned, Brian, earlier, from your people to get the work done. So fortunately, our relationship, you know, went well from there. But it's only with me standing up and you know, knowing that, you know, this is not going to end well. She doesn't know yet. So yeah.
Right. You know, I'm remembering a while ago when I was in corporate America, and my mom and dad were going through a challenge with his health. And I was really being torn around, okay, should I be at home? Should I go back home? Should I be there to support them? This kind of deal. And, you know, I worked in an environment where I didn't really, I worked in an environment that I could do some work remotely and that kind of deal. And so I remember I had a boss, and I won't mention his name, but I had a boss who I was literally kind of just, we were in his office and I was telling him about my feelings around this and that, you know, as a son, this is the things that a son does and that kind of deal. And his response to this was, well, you know, I'll never forget when I was working and um, um, I had a chance to go to the hospital to be with my mom before she died, but I had to work. And I never said goodbye. I was never there. And it was um, basically what he was saying was, if you think you need to go home, forget about it. You need to be here working on this project. And that if I can not make it personal, right, and stay on business and make the business first, then it'll all kind of work itself out. And I was like, wow, wow. What I mean, really, like, where's, again, going back to this humanity, going back to where we're putting our people first, and building this culture that's of upliftment. In fact, she goes in and quotes from Dr. Benjamin Hardy, who's an organizational psychologist. And she says, and this guy says, we expand in our efficiency, our ability to produce results in life based on our relationships. We expand our efficacy through relationships because we embed the strengths of each of us, right? So basically taking the strength and putting that in there, but you have to be vulnerable enough to get there and develop these relationships. So you were talking about emotional intelligence and how this kind of relates to this. Talk a little bit about that, Dr. Chanel.
Yeah, well, it always starts with the leader. Let's make sure that we understand that clearly.
Right.
And emotional intelligence, Brian, is simply first the leader recognizing that there is vulnerability, there's strength and vulnerability, but they have to be aware of their emotions and what triggers them and how they self-regulate their emotions. And so they're setting an example for their team in terms of how open they are, how vulnerable they are. And yes, they're the leader, but we all have emotions. And if
Right.
you're of the opinion you've got to stuff yours down and you've got to, demonstrate this hardness, then that relates to your team that they're not able to open up and express. And it's that being open and vulnerable that allows us to connect human to human. And so the emotional intelligence first is all about you being able to understand your emotions, being able to regulate your emotions, understand what triggers you so that you can deal with that prior to any explosions, if you will, or any crises or any conflict. You're already in control. So it's like a self-control kind of soft skill, like I said. But then by you doing that, you give permission for your people also to be in control of their emotions and be able to have that emotional intelligence to connect, to develop deeper relationships and trust each other so that you all can, contribute, contribute to the best to the team because you're bringing out the best in each individual. And so you've got basically self-management, self-regulation, and then your ability to read the room of being able to, socially manage the space that you're in, basically putting yourself in another person's shoes so that you have empathy. So like your boss, former boss would have had some empathy in you having that internal conflict of should I go home? Can you support me in this? Maybe I'll take a couple days off or, just whatever that arrangement would be. There was didn't seem like there was any empathy there. And so that leaves you in an internal conflict. If you're in internal conflict, you're not producing, you're not creating, you're not innovating, right? You're kind of trying to stay, safe in your world and attend to your dad at that time.
Right.
And then it's also just being able to set realistic goals and to be able to, as a team, all contribute and support each other in the goal development personally and as a team, as an organization. And so, again, emotional intelligence is probably one of the top skills that gets leaders promoted. And also, that's
Mhm.
what leaders are hiring for if you can demonstrate social and emotional intelligence. It's really, really big.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So important. I mean, and this author co-signs exactly what you're saying with this specific statement, where she says, imagine if we built cultures from the perspective that you're talking about, Chanel. Imagine if we truly put people first and we value their unique contributions rather than treating them as if they were expendable. Exclamation point on that. Exclamation point. So thank you. Thank you for this. This is a really powerful discussion. So again, thank you for being here. Listen, Chanel's not going anywhere, everybody. So we're going to take this quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk about how the power of transformational relationships in the work environment is changing the face of business. Next.
Are you a business owner looking to expand your reach and revenue to a perfect community? Being a Soulivity Today radio sponsor puts your business in front of hundreds of thousands of customers every week, and it's affordable too. For about the cost of a cup of coffee and snack each day, you can reach ideal people looking for your product or service. Soulivity Today is a weekly, hour-long program that dives into the heart of what matters most in our lives, the people, places, and topics that shape our world. It's the perfect place for your business to shine. Go to soulivity.com/Soulivity Today to learn how you can expand your business marketplace by becoming a Soulivity Today radio show sponsor. And for a limited time, special rates are being offered, so don't delay.
Addiction is an epidemic. Millions are struggling and over 100 lives are lost each day. Are you next? At Better Addiction Care, we understand the devastating impact of drug and alcohol addiction. Our network of treatment centers are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's time to fix the pieces addiction has destroyed. Our network of treatment centers offer detox, therapy, counseling, private luxurious centers, physical fitness, chef-prepared meals, aftercare, and your insurance may cover up to 100% of costs. Only you can put an end to your addiction. It's time to make the life-changing call and get the help you need. Call now, and in just minutes, you could be on your way to a drug and alcohol-free life. The call is free and confidential, and there is no obligation. Visit betteraddictioncare.com or call
855-246-4024. That's 855-246-4024.
Well, hello there. We are back here with more on Soulivity Today as we spend the hour answering this wonderful question, is it business or personal? With my very special guest and co-host today, Dr. Chanel DeGuzman, who's an author and executive leadership coach. Chanel, from this article by Candy Barone, which we're talking, where she's basically making the argument that we need to be reevaluating whether or not where this culture of separating business and personal is really effective or not. She makes this really powerful statement where she's saying that people need to be treated with the highest esteemed value in order to build what she's calling transformational relationships. They create opportunities for all. In fact, she says when people feel valued, they give more, they show up bigger, they take initiative and risk, they invest their time, energy, and heart. They show up and collaborate as a team, as team players. They take ownership of their work. And then she goes on and says, individuals then become a part of the bigger overall equation. They see how they fit in the puzzle, and the overall why is answered. They believe in something and serve from that capacity and mindset. Really dovetails on what you were saying with emotional intelligence. When a leader is gains skills in that and starts being more productive and beginning building these relationships, they're not just quote unquote personal relationships, they become transformational relationships at work. Your thoughts, Dr. Chanel?
Yeah. Well, I'll share a quote first, Brian, that says,
Okay.
relationships are everything. Relationships
Mm,
are everything. Relationships require cultivation, and cultivation requires time. So a
mm,
leader has to invest the time into their people. And that it's simply a matter of figuring out on your calendar, whether it's biweekly, once a month, but on a regular basis, you're sitting down with your people, preferably one-on-one, like for example, your leadership team, your direct reports, and you're having the conversations that go deeper. She also talks about bringing the soul of that person into the business, so that she talks about creating an environment of love, of trust, respect, and vulnerability. Those are the elements that, again, people kind of, shy away from. But that is
mhm.
what we're talking about in terms of this transformational type relationship. It goes
Yeah,
beyond the surface, it goes deeper, and there's a genuine caring that you have for
yeah,
your people. And when people feel cared for and supported and, like, and I would say looked after, like you're trying to do everything you can to increase resources and decrease barriers so that I can get my job done. You're my biggest advocate, so you're willing to go to bat for me to get the things that I
yeah,
need to do the job in the best
yeah,
way that I can. But that all starts with that fundamental foundational relationship building that takes time. So in that cultivation, if any gardeners are out there, the cultivation is where you're, digging up the weeds, you're watering, you're planting, you're talking to. It's no different
right.
than developing these relationships with our people.
As you were talking, I couldn't help but think that in the military, for example,
Mhm.
they really, 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 really push this idea that we are a family. We are, the terms like band of brothers, right? These are my brothers and sisters, and we're together throughout everything. And people become friends, even if they have differences and that kind of thing. They work that stuff out, and that those relationships heighten their ability to be effective and efficient in their jobs. And it's like, well, if we're talking about literally life and death situations, right, where these people have to depend on each other, and they're doing exactly what you're talking about, where this idea of our military leaders becoming more emotionally intelligent, leading with this connective tissue, then why wouldn't we be doing it in the corporate offices and
Right.
in managerial roles and other leadership, or as entrepreneurs, how we're leading our organizations as entrepreneurs? It doesn't make sense, right?
Mhm. I agree. And that's a really good example, Brian. And it's really a matter again of this awareness. There's got to be self-awareness. There's got to be somebody in the organization has to know that developing their leaders around skills like emotional intelligence, like conflict resolution, are central to, like you said, helping them to develop this connective tissue. But there has to be some type of, maybe incentives, something that is tied to, and you can see it. I mean, you can see it in
Right,
results, right? You can
right.
see when more connected teams, cohesive teams, I'm, I'm sure the research would bear it out, probably outperform those who are not, centrally connected in that transformative way that you're talking about and this article refers to. And
Yeah.
so, our HR departments, I know they're doing the very best they can, and resources are sometimes not as ample, but this is one area that I highly recommend, and something that I spend time with the people that I coach is emotional intelligence. And I'm not like promoting emotional intelligence as the end all be all. I'm just saying, whatever you do, put time on the calendar, sit down with your people and get to know your people, find out what sparks them, what brings them alive, what's going on in their world. Because whether we like it or not, the way that we show up encompasses all of us. And so if we have to leave certain parts at home, again, it's just not to the advantage of the organization or that team, that culture, if we have to park ourselves at the door. And I believe it's up to the leaders to spend the time to draw that out. And I'll also just add this, Brian, you also have to open up and let people get to know you. I got dinged on an evaluation time because I was a top performer, but I was a young professional, Brian. I didn't let people get to know me, right? And so it goes both ways. Not only are you investing the time to get to know your people, you have to show up and open up and let people into your world as well. And I'm not talking deep personal stuff, but enough to know who the real you is. Right.
Yeah. There's layers and there's boundaries, and we're not talking that people don't have boundaries, but there's ways to do that, right?
Oh, sure.
And engaging people like you and others that can help teach where those boundaries may be. Again, it becomes a very amazing way of being effective in your job. Listen, we're going to take another break. Chanel's going to stay with us. But when we come back, we'll give you some powerful reasons why maybe having it's business, not personal attitude could be sabotaging your business. So stay tuned.
Attention timeshare owners. This is an urgent consumer alert from the Timeshare Exit Hotline, a national company specializing in helping consumers legally get out of their expensive timeshare contracts. We're offering you a way to legally get rid of your timeshare. So if you're fed up with the maintenance fees that keep on coming and want to learn if you can terminate your timeshare legally and permanently, call today. Call the number on your screen today. It's a free call.
Dial 877-798-5991 today. That's 877-798-5991.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
Dial 855-486-4553 today. That's 855-486-4553.
Hey, welcome back to Soulivity Today as we discuss the question, is it business or personal, with author and executive leadership coach, Dr. Chanel DeGuzman. Dr. Chanel, running up on time. I wish we had more time to talk about this because this is such a very powerful paradigm shift because this thing has been around for a long time. But in the article that we're talking about today, the author wraps it up. Candy Barone wraps it up by saying, because it's business, it ought to be personal. And she kind of points out things that you were pointing out, and I'll kind of run through these really quickly because I want to get your thoughts on the other side of this. She says, selling and marketing are nothing more than sharing your love with the clients who need you most. your people are the heartbeat and soul of both of those things. She said, when individuals feel valued, they are able to empower themselves to take risk, to challenge the status quo, and to lead from where they are at with what they bring to the table. She says they dare to be courageous and have real meaningful conversations with each other. And she says one of the things missing in companies today is a powerful focus on people and emotional intelligence, cultural intelligence, and people intelligence required to support those people, particularly when it comes to leadership. All right, Dr. Chanel, take us home. Take us home with this. What are your thoughts about this?
Oh, that's good stuff. I love her analogy. She says sales is nothing more, for example, and when you're selling the vision, the mission of that team, of that organization. So she says sales is nothing more than the love letter you offer to those who need and want your products or services. You are always, you are always transcribing, you are always in development of this love letter. And this love letter is your heart and soul that you put into acknowledging the efforts of your team members, drawing them out, making them feel valued and validated, that they're a part of something bigger and they understand their role of why they're contributing in the way that you're asking them to. They understand and they buy into that love letter, of sorts, because you've penned it, you've scribed it with your heart and soul. So when you put your heart and soul into it, it attracts others to do the same. And she talks about, people are the heart and soul of the organization. And the sooner we start to embrace that, feel comfortable with it, and gain the skills to play that out in terms of our relationship building, our trust building, our culture, our people building, we're going to see differences in our team. We're going to see that loyalty. We're going to see that trust. We're going to see the benefits, and we'll stop seeing some of the quietly quitting epidemic that's going on right now. So I think she's spot on. And again, so glad you're bringing this up. And I do encourage those to start to invest the time in those courageous conversations. That's the course, actually, you just reminded, that's the course title that I did just last week, was Courageous Conversations, because it does take you stepping up to the plate. You have to step up and step out of yourself to quote unquote go there, Brian. So very important.
I mean, thank you for that. Woo, the love letter, right? I mean, I can only imagine organizations and the level of success that they have when they take that approach to valuing their people so much that that value translates into every single interaction and engagement that they have with their current clients and prospective customers, right? That it's just going to fall through. And then those people are going to want to do business with you, because you and I both know people only do business with people they know, they love, and they trust. So if there's already a culture of that within the organization, that resonance is just going to be there, and those customers are going to be attracted to that and say, "Oh, yes, I want
some of that.
I want some of that."
Yeah.
I trust that. That feels good. Yep.
Absolutely. Conversely, Brian, if that's not there, if the internal house is, a little shaky, if, employee morale is down because there isn't the trust, there isn't the love in there, there isn't the connectedness, and it starts to affect the way that we deliver our services outwardly facing. And people pick up on that. People know when there is, when people are authentic and people truly enjoy what they're doing, it translates into the conversation, into the language, into the attitudes and behaviors that are expressed in the marketplace. And so it can definitely go both ways. And you can also see that in the movie, a real quick example of The Woman Warrior. Is it The Woman Warrior?
Yeah.
Remember when Viola Davis, and I'm not going to give it away, but Viola Davis had to go out and do this really hard task, dangerous, risky task. And she didn't
Mm-hmm.
want her team members to go with her because she knew the risk involved. And so she
Mm-hmm.
set out on a trek to go handle this business of hers because she's strong and courageous. And as she starts to walk, she can hear rustling behind her. And you know who was behind her? Her team,
They're
because
like,
she had
nah,
built up that respect, that
right,
loyalty from
right.
already investing in her people. And so it wasn't a question of whether or not they had her back. They followed right behind her. They ended up,
Absolutely.
doing what they had to do. But that's a huge example of what we call that informal authority. When you have that trust and respect of your people because you've built those relationships, they are with you and they're going to have your back at the most crucial times.
Oof.
So yes,
You
definitely
better
take that
preach.
relationship. Take
You
that
better
relationship,
preach.
yeah, to that deeper level.
And it's true. I mean, I think the was called the Woman King. The Woman
The Woman
King.
King.
I think, yeah.
Yes.
And I
Thank
remember
you.
that it's so powerful. And she became vulnerable.
Yes,
She
she
didn't say
did.
go back. She just
Right.
basically surrendered to what she had created through her own example, right? That she needed that support too. And
Yes.
so they became they were this beautiful tribe together going to this going to take on this challenge, and they were ultimately victorious. So I highly recommend people go
Absolutely.
watch that movie.
It's a
Thank
great
you.
leadership lesson.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Listen, we're not done yet. Because when we come back, Chanel, I want people to understand that they don't have to do this alone, just like you were just talking about the Woman King. They don't have to go through this process alone, that going through this process begins with understanding that maybe you as a leader or an entrepreneur or a manager or even an employee need support to move through this. And there's a beautiful way they can receive that through something that you do, through the gift as a gift from your heart to them. So listen, we're going to take this quick break and we'll be back with more of Soulivity Today in just a minute. Soulivity Today is brought to you by Happy Travelers Tours and Old Vine Wine Tours.
Ready to embark on a wine-filled adventure? Go to oldvinewinetours.com and book your luxury wine tour today and experience the unparalleled beauty and flavors of Sonoma, Napa, and Lake counties. oldvinewinetours.com offers transportation for the most amazing experiences in the Sonoma Valley, Santa Rosa, Healdsburg, and all of Sonoma County, as well as the Napa Valley and Clear Lake wineries of Lake County. From boutique tastings to bridal party transportation, we have you covered. Visit oldvinewinetours.com or call 707-386-9859 for more information. Don't forget to mention promo code Soulivity to get 10% off either a culture or wine tour. Book your wine country adventure. Visit oldvinewinetours.com or call 707-386-9859 today.
And welcome back to Soulivity Today. Let's get to some gifts from the heart. Dr. Chanel, based upon our conversation today, you have the absolute perfect gift from the heart for people, whether they're leading a team, running a business, or just working toward their personal goals. Tell us more about these complimentary coaching sessions that you have.
Right. Based on everything we've talked about today, now would be a really good time to pick up the phone. Let's schedule some time. I offer a complimentary coaching session. And especially if you are a leader, as we've talked about today, an entrepreneur, if you're leading people, if you're even in sales, this is an opportunity for you to sit down and, pick up the phone, chat with me about where you are, do an assessment even. Let's figure out from an emotional intelligence standpoint, where are the areas that you need to improve? Have you ever thought about doing a 360, which is a feedback mechanism that your team gives you critical feedback on where you are as a leader. This is valuable information. So we talk about those types of assessments, analysis, so that we can get to know what your strengths are, where your challenges and areas of growth are, and we develop a plan to get you to that next level. So pick up the phone, happy to chat with you and see where we go from there.
Absolutely. And people can, um, you know, dial this number at 313-410-9909 to schedule that absolutely free. It's complimentary coaching session so that you can start the next chapter of your overall life, but specifically your professional life. Dr. Shana, you do so much good work with this. I mean, you were talking about these ideas and tenets and different thoughts around how people can proceed with their life. Emotional intelligence is just one aspect of that, but there's other aspects that you bring to the table. So thank you for that. Again, complimentary coaching
My pleasure.
sessions. Yeah, you can dial 313-410-9909 today and schedule that with our own Dr. Chanel DeGuzman. And thank you just for being here. I mean, man, what a powerful show today. What a powerful show today.
Great topic,
I
Brian.
can't,
Great.
yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait for our next show together. And what we have to bring, maybe we'll talk about those intelligences that Candy Barone was talking about. Emotional intelligence, cultural intelligence. Those are things that I think that people may not be aware of. And so maybe we'll dive into that next. So thanks again.
Absolutely.
All right. Listen, just want to remind you to follow us on social media, where Soulivity is active on all the major platforms. Just do a search for Soulivity and you'll find us everywhere. Also, every Soulivity Today show is a podcast, so you can download every show and take some much needed inspiration wherever you go. Listen, we are almost out of time. So on behalf of all of us here at Soulivity, I want to say thanks for being with us on this episode of Soulivity Today. You can join our nationally syndicated show at 8 a.m. Eastern weekdays on Soulivity TV or select radio stations around the country. We are America's place for conversations that will empower you every single day. So until next time, keep having real conversations with passion and purpose, and you'll create a life full of high quality living, something we like to call your best life today. See you next time. Bye for now.
This work is subject to copyright owned by Affinity Global LLC. Any reproduction or republication of all or part of this is expressly prohibited unless Affinity Global LLC has explicitly granted its prior written consent. All other rights reserved.